Uh, Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Department of Family Medicine, Government Medical College, Kozhikode, I welcome you all to the fifth topic of the series of webinars we are hosting. And the topic for today is balanced diet to combat COVID, other infections, and lifestyle disorders. In fact, this is one of the most important topic in the new era of pandemic and lifestyle diseases. And even many are unaware, even doctors are unaware of the importance of this topic. And today's speaker is Dr. P.K. Shashidharan, former HOD, Department of General Medicine, Government Medical College, Kozhikode. And those who have any questions, please put in the chat box or raise your hands. And over to you, sir.
Mute ചെയ്യാൻ പറഞ്ഞില്ലേ? I think good evening all of you. This topic is important for several reasons. As we go on, we will see why it is so important in this context. I have given the title as balanced diet to beat COVID and other infections and the lifestyle disease, because it is important in all management of all the diseases. Because we are discussing this topic in the context of COVID-19, we should start with this observation that any infection is a result of effective interaction to the advantage of the agent between agent, host, and environment. We can modify that and change the outcome in favor of the host, provided we modify our diet and lifestyle. This is not something new. This has been there in all the modern medicine textbooks, but unfortunately the focus has shifted only to the agent. We forgot the host. That is the point I am trying to say. And for the host, the way to defend from an organism getting, for example, if the virulence and dose are very high, nothing can stop it. Like the first patient with Nipah, the dose of the organism would have been so high that nothing could have stopped it. It is like a cyclone or a tsunami, and nobody can defend from that. That happens extremely rarely, like accidents. But in majority of the situations, the organism may be entering the body in small doses. That too we can try to reduce by personal hygiene, hand hygiene, and now in this case, respiratory hygiene. But having the organism got into the body, how it will behave will depend on the diet and lifestyle of the individual, which we could have modified very easily, especially in our state at least. These are the problems that we encounter when we talk about diet. We had conducted a survey as part of the thesis and found that 98.5% do not even know what a balanced diet is. That is another question. By chance they know about it, unless they are empowered for it, they will not be eating it. At the same time, the same people have several wrong concepts on balanced diet. For some people, it may be drinking 1 glass of milk. For some others, it may be just 1 egg once in a while. And in fact, people eat for taste and appetite only. And often they eat to full stomach. Overeating has become universal unless they are starving by chance. And please mute all of them. False information alone is there everywhere. Like for example, people have shifted to millets or jackfruits to reduce sugar, or for taking oats for reducing cholesterol. And there are no clear guidelines in textbooks, and doctors also have been ignoring this topic for long. This is the #1 problem that we should address: malnutrition. Don't think a person like this is well nourished. This person is also malnourished. Even in terms of only thing he gets probably is an excess calories. When we talk about malnutrition, we always end up talking about starvation only. Starvation may not be there. Even people like this are malnourished, and they have several nutritional deficiencies. The only thing excess is the carbohydrate. So malnutrition is almost seen in 99 to 100%, because it is a social issue. If I have to take balanced diet 3 times a day, the whole society must be empowered to take balanced diet. All of you must be consuming balanced diet. and that day only I will get balanced diet 3 times a day. So it is there in everyone. Anyway, I should share with you what made me so confident to talk on balanced diet, because I go back to my basics, because I had great interest in metabolism and nutrition, being a chemistry graduate before joining medicine, and got concepts of nutrition with great expectations. But I found that they are complicated, theoretical, difficult to practice. And never got any practical tips on applying nutrition. No one taught it properly also, nowhere it is mentioned also. But at the same time, we have been listening to traditional doctors speaking very high of and advocating proper diet. But that did not match well with the scientific principles we learn. There is some gap between these two. I must admit that I did not know balanced diet till I was 45 years. That only shows how defective the educational system when it comes to basic issues in healthcare. We learn about diseases, management, but forget about basics. And then subsequently, I have the unique opportunity to study, and not subsequently, along with this period, unique opportunity to work in the Museum of Disease. That is a Department of Medicine at Calicut Medical College. Those who know the department knows that we do not, there is no dearth of cases. Any disease you mention, we will come across it. And I've been studying their dietary habits and lifestyle habits of a variety of patients, because the medicine department there deals with all problems, including infections, non-communicable disease, and hematological malignancies including. And found that even rich patients had numerous wrong concepts and practice on balanced diet. And if they by chance come as patients, if anyone comes as a patient, they have multiple deficiencies. In addition to that, I started studying healthy and old individuals. In fact, my journey with that took me even to the Honorable Justice Krishna Iyer, who lived up to 100 years. I have been very closely studying their diet and lifestyle too. And wherever I traveled outside of the country, in fact, I traveled all throughout India, I always took a special care to study their diet and lifestyle, and outside India, their health systems too. And my own research were always focused on diet and nutrition. In fact, I have been experimenting on diet and lifestyle in my patients and myself and my relatives for the last 20 years. So the concept is almost near total now. And I feel that at this point, I have to disseminate it. And please do not ask me references, because these are all ideas compiled by my own observations. And what did we learn about nutrition? It was mixed diet only. That was enough in examinations. From pediatrics department, we got some insight during our MBBS days. Those days, pediatrics only gave importance on diet. But the focus there also was on kwashiorkor, marasmus, protein, and vitamin supplements, and the extreme cases of malnutrition only. Later, actually, their focus also has shifted to vaccine, and they gave up. It seems they have given up nutrition now. And then we were learning and listening to the food pyramids designed in USA, which make people eat pyramids of food rather than getting anything proper. So the practical tips and social issues were never discussed anywhere in the nutrition topics. Now the present picture of nutrition practices, if you look at, you will find that we have awareness on need for proteins, vitamins, minerals, and their daily requirement, the doses including, and the symptoms of deficiency and excess we know, but how to get the components naturally were never discussed in adequate amounts. All were resorting to shortcuts or health drinks, whether it is modern medicine or alternative systems. And the previous generation doctors at least used to prescribe vitamins. Now, the present generation doctors think that prescribing vitamins is unscientific. And what do the people do? They eat multiple carbohydrates followed by snacking on carbohydrate. And they give up egg yolk and eat only egg white, if at all. They don't get any protein. And pulses also they give up because they think that it produces gas. dyspepsia. And for proteins, people prefer the protein powder or cow's milk when there are enough and more natural sources. Coconut oil has become unpopular. People shifted to palm oil and sunflower oil. And when you talk about hypokalemia, hypomagnesemia, we will search for bottle preparations when it is available in large amounts in vegetables and fruits. And the micronutrients and antioxidants, people prescribe only capsules. Eating for entertainment is seen only in man. No other animals do that. Finally, we are in the grip of overweight with the dyslipidemia, NASH, dyspepsia, hypertension, diabetes, ischemic heart disease, and stroke. And then people end up in procedures, interventions, and that has become the order of the day. Very meticulously, we check our lipid profiles repeatedly. In fact, patients come on their own with a fasting lipid profile, and they are very happy to be on statin and aspirin regularly. And finally end up having multiple medications, and to prevent the GI upset, they get PPI2. But taking a vitamin tablet alone is considered unscientific. Very, very sad situation that we see. The paradoxes that we see in vitamin deficiencies, nutritional deficiencies, that people depend on blood levels to diagnose it. In reality, a good dietary history with close observation will give the answer. But nobody is taking that. Because the Western practice is to do that, because Western practice, nutritional disorders are almost corrected. So they do not know how to diagnose it clinically. But even there, it is possible by dietary history. No one knows what a balanced diet is. And the quacks come into the picture, educating people on alkaline diet, keto diet, and there are too many followers to this. That shows that people are keen to know it. And there are no doctors who advise people on balanced diet. And we have totally given up and entrusted that responsibility to dietitians when food is a primary medicine. In fact, there were tips everywhere if we start looking for. So I managed to combine all these using principles of nutrition, which we learn in the basic classes in biochemistry including. And I had been prescribing diet plan to all my patients with good results. And I had studies on reversal of diabetes, NASH, polycythemia including, and hypertension reversal. Some of them are, two of them are published, two are to be published. And it was possible to reverse a good percentage of them. And in fact, I started off with tuberculosis. The study journey on learning on nutrition started with tuberculosis. And in addition to that, as HOD of the Department of Medicine, I was a nodal officer for ART. And I found that diet modification had a very good impact on their outcome. And in fact, it was a combination with the malnutrition which led these people to develop AIDS when they develop HIV infection. So the concepts that I'm presenting on balanced diet is the result of a lifetime of observations and studies. And I'm very confident in saying that the commonest cause for low CD4 count is malnutrition, not HIV infection. So in other words, the HIV infection is a result of malnutrition itself. HIV may be entering the body, it transformed to AIDS because of malnutrition. In fact, we managed hematological problems in large numbers in our department since I was in charge of the hematology clinic. And the neutropenic patients were improving very well on proper dietary supplement, natural sources of diet. And then during my travel, I used to study the diet in developed countries and observed that these people get most of the essential items not by plan, because they were getting it. It was a social practice. They don't know how to ask for it. They don't know how to look for it. They will encounter these items naturally. But they too are not discussing the practical tips. So if you ask them, they do not tell all these. Just because the social practices allow them to have greater access, they get a better nutrition. So the concepts are finally the result of a lifetime of observations and studies, combining goodness in all information that I collected, from including the traditional systems here, that is Ayurveda. Studied the diet of people who lived long, and this is another observation. In fact, it happened in one district in Kerala. Around 1,500 people attended a marriage. They all took the same water, same food, but around more than 100 people developed typhoid. So that means even if the organism enters in a smaller doses or moderate doses, the outcome of the infection is decided by the host immunity. Then in 1993, I noted vitamin D deficiency in patients with tuberculosis, and the landmark study was completed in 1999. It was published in 2002, the first study in fact in the world. And this very clearly said malnutrition is the cause for tuberculosis. And the studies on vitamin B12 deficiency, that also we had a few studies and a review article. And this was the article which was published on tuberculosis in 2002, JAPI. It very clearly said vitamin D deficiency exists in patients with tuberculosis and is possibly a cause rather than the effect of disease. And deficiency is due to decreased dietary intake. This aspect is forgotten even today. We are supplementing vitamin D, forgetting the diet part of it. This again was the review article written in Medicine Update in 2012 on vitamin D. And then this article was published in, I think, in 2018, vitamin D deficiency causes and solutions. All these are available on the net if you want to read. Then another article, because one of my students took an interest in publishing an article on tuberculosis in the context of the home-based treatment. We forget about nutrition in tuberculosis control programs. We have programs for administering medicines directly into the mouth of the patient, but we forget the basic cause, that is malnutrition. And the relation between hypertension and vitamin D also we had published. And this was on B12. We discussed it once. All these are issues of malnutrition. And this is on reversal of diabetes. This also you can access online. Reversal of non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. And there are two more studies which we have completed. Reversal of polycythemia and reversal of hypertension. This is another study on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And in addition, I got an opportunity to do a survey in Attapadi when children died in excess numbers. And I found that death was all due to malnutrition. And the malnutrition resulted from deforestation. So these are not given importance. People go after supplementing food packets or vitamin tablets alone. That's not enough. We need to address the basic issues. Now let us go to that sets the background for the discussion on balanced diet. And let us see what is a balanced diet. Let us have a concept. Do not limit it to that. We need to give it to the patients too. Rather than secretly following good dietary habits and lifestyle habits in our life and not telling anything about that to the patient is a crime. I feel it is a crime. So we should know what to eat and what all to avoid, and how much and how often to eat. This is a concept we need to develop. The primary medicine balanced diet has 5 components. It's not enough that you take any one of them at any time according to your wish. There are 5 components. A source of carbohydrate, which can be cereals, or you can go for any of the tubers or yam, potato, or even jackfruit. And one source of protein, which can be pulses, or you can go for fish, meat, egg, curd, or mushroom. And the proportion also is very important. If you're taking the pulses, it has to be 3:1 proportion, 3 portions of cereals and 1 portion of pulses. But if you want to cut down on the carbohydrate, then it can be 2:1. For people who do overwork, who need large amount of carbohydrate, it can be 4:1 also. But this has to be individualized. And vegetables. Vegetables means only the high fiber vegetables, not anything other than non-vegetarian food. Fresh fruits and water. If you're getting all these 5 components in the right proportions every day, every time you eat, then only we are getting a balanced diet. That's the point we need to know. We should always identify the source of carbohydrate or the source of calories in the diet, because that is a villain in all the problems. And the carbohydrate in the diet has to be compared to fuel in the fuel tank of a vehicle. You don't put fuel into the fuel tank of your vehicle during lockdowns. You just allow not to do it, but you need to maintain it. So that needs only the other items. identify all the carbohydrates and try to control their intake. None of them is superior. You can go for rice, wheat, ragi, maize, oats, or millets. It depends on which one you have access to, how much money you have to spend, rather than going for changing rice to oats. Oats was once used for feeding horses. Potato, you can be used throughout your life 3 times a day. Chinese potato, yams, tapioca, jackfruit, any other roots and tubers. These are all sources of carbohydrate. You need to depend only on one source of carbohydrate, and the amount has to be individualized. The quantity matters. The combinations matter, because you cannot combine the roots and tubers with the pulses. Roots and tubers contain just carbohydrate also. So you need to take a complete protein, which comes only from non-vegetarian proteins or curd or mushroom. Pulses are incomplete proteins. It will go only with rice, wheat, ragi, maize, oats, or millets. So that this is a basic principle that you should know. Our people eat several wrong combinations is a very common scenario here. The source of protein can be primarily for a vegetarian diet. It is pulses. You can go for any of the pulses. None of them is superior, but you can go on changing it. Nuts can be used when you don't have access to the pulses. Otherwise, go for fish, egg, meat, or mushroom, or any of the seafoods. This concept is very important: complete protein, incomplete protein, and approximately, if you are taking a complete protein like egg, fish, meat, or mushroom, the maximum weight at a time should not go more than 2 egg size, because the protein requirement is even for a pregnant woman, it is 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram only. So the overall a 60 kilogram person will be requiring only 120 grams. One egg can be the size of some 30 grams. So maybe 4 or 6 eggs at the most, maybe 20 grams approximately. It need not be accurate, but you should know that protein should not be taken in excess. It should not be avoided also. Then high fiber vegetables. Every time we eat, regular intake of vegetables is a must. And it is always very good to go for an assortment of vegetables rather than taking one of them alone. We will get fed up. Always try to combine several vegetables, and if you spend time on it, it is possible. It can be taken raw or half boiled, but do not overcook it. When you overcook, all the some vitamins like folic acid and all are destroyed. It contains some folic acid. There's no restriction on the quantity here. This is the one where which one you can eat in the amount that you prefer to have. The fear of pesticide has to be given up, because that is the job of the food safety department. Our job is to teach and take ourselves rather than being afraid of pesticide. If you are too much afraid of pesticide, stop taking air also, because air may be polluted, the water may be polluted. So, and make it the first thing to eat. Then make this as the most important item of the diet, so that we can avoid unnecessary weight gain. Fruits also every time to get folic acid, vitamin C, and soluble fiber and antioxidants. Any of the fruits, but ideal is to go for fresh, whole, and seasonal. And again, if you can afford, go for an assortment of 3 to 4 fruits if possible, but at least one fruit every time you eat. The size, you can say the size of a large apple or orange. You can take any fruits or an assortment, but do not take it dry. Dry dates is not fruits. It's just a glorified fast food only. Boiled banana is not fruits. There's no point taking canned or cooked fruits or halwa made of fruits. They are actually spoiling it. When to eat is another point. Another point. It's always good to eat before, so that you will cut down on the carbohydrates. But if you can, if you are very careful, you can eat at any time alone. But do not eat alone, as okay, it may not be that beneficial, but it is not harmful. But if you're forced to make fruit juices, that's only when the person you give it is edentulous. And even then, do not add milk or sugar. Do not filter it also. This is a concept of balanced diet I was trying to convey. It should be there every time we eat, and it's the most important good lifestyle habit that we can promote and practice. High fiber vegetables, fresh fruits, and natural proteins should be the backbone of a balanced diet, not the carbohydrate. Carbohydrate, I told that especially during this lockdown, you don't even need it. But you can go for whatever you feel like eating. You can go for jackfruit, you can go for potato or rice or millet, whatever you get. But these three are very important. I given this number in this order 1, 2, 3, 4 because water is most important. You cannot survive more than 15 days without water, or you can survive on water alone for 15 days. You can, if you add vegetables, fruits, and protein, then nothing will happen. Your body protein may be broken down slowly, or the carbohydrates will be used up first. Anyway, these four are essential for maintaining the body health, and this is only for calorie requirements. So to do some work, physical activities. And if you take a balanced diet, we get enough vitamins like vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin A, riboflavin, B12, folic acid, and antioxidant. That will prevent us developing COVID infection or prevent developing complications of COVID infection. This is one thing we need to know. This is one example of how we can make a vegetable meal. It should be the major bulk in any meal, and anyone expertise in kitchen at least here in future at least should be diverted to making vegetable meals. But even these some of them may contain carbohydrates. You need to count on this carbohydrate as well. This is enough, in fact, for a sedentary person. You don't have to go for excess carbohydrate. But when you take vegetable alone as a major meal, the protein has to come from a complete protein. It should be curd, mushroom, or fish, meat, egg, or egg. Pulses cannot go with this unless you are eating cereals. And you may add any of the fruits also to add the look and also the quality. And you may add any of the oil, any oil that you prefer, so that the germs may be killed, taste can be increased, or you can make it half boiled. Raw coconut may be added in any amount because it will give several good things, including antioxidants. And the most important source of extra virgin coconut oil is raw coconut. The Kerala habit of eating raw coconut is a good habit. It has to be propagated. Any edible oil can be used to improve taste, or as I mentioned before, they can destroy the germs too while eating raw. The only thing is the oil which remains as liquid at room temperature is better. That's why olive oil has a superiority here, because it will remain oil even in lower temperatures. We don't have to go for olive oil. If you like coconut oil, that is the best thing. Or if you like any other oil, you can add that edible oil, any other edible oil. Any of them. You don't consider any of them is superior. In fact, for us, coconut oil is the best oil for us. But avoid frying with any of these. And you don't have to add extra oil as a mandatory item, because there is oil in all the items that you eat. In anything, you may get enough oil. You don't have to add extra amounts unless you need it. But count on the calorie factor if you are adding oil, because 1 gram of fat contains about 3 times the calorie of 1 gram of carbohydrate. Then the next plan is to avoid overeating. Never fill the stomach, never go for a refill. This is the message that you have to teach them. You know how much petrol you need to fill in a vehicle for driving 100 kilometers or 10 kilometers. It is not the same. There's no point comparing. So never go for a refill. You plan according to how much you need, and then that is it. Ultimately, including carbohydrate, it should be half the capacity of the stomach. And vegetables should be forming major bulk in any meal. This is only place for carbohydrate. Even this can be given to vegetables when you want to reduce weight. And this is protein, any of them, and fruits also. So all these 4 items should be there every time we eat. Then only we are eating a balanced diet. These are some of the tips on avoiding overeating and weight gain. Eat only when you are hungry, not because it is 8 o'clock or 1 o'clock. It should be only when you are hungry, or eat only that much amount for the previous meal so that you feel hungry by the time you are about to eat. And stop eating once the hunger is over, and never eat to full stomach. Maximum 3 times a day only. In fact, for sedentary workers, 2 meals a day is more ideal. Even if it is 3 meals, So the last meal of the day should be taken at least 3 to 4 hours before going to bed. Suppose you go, you delay your dinner, have dinner and go to bed, you are creating problem for the body. It is actually when you are sleeping, the whole body is working, digesting the things you have taken, and you may get gaseous distension and chest pain and dyspepsia, vomiting. Several discomforts can occur. Never go to sleep with full stomach. Anyway, eat at least 4 hours before going to bed. That is the best practice. And that is the reason why intermittent fasting for 12 hours a day, if you can practice, it will help the body in several ways. For example, the last meal you take at 7 o'clock, breakfast after 7 a.m. in the morning, you get easily 12 hours of fasting. That helps weight loss, and not only weight loss or prevents weight gain. And there is another additional advantage of intermittent fasting. It upregulates the process of autophagy. Now I'll tell you something about autophagy and its advantages. This is what this is an article in October 2020 in New England Journal of Medicine. It's a natural homeostatic process, involves the sequestration of cytoplasmic components and autophagosomes. Because actually the dying cells are taken, it is self-eating, but it takes only the dying cells as long as you have enough calories, provide enough calories. Suppose you are starving for long, it may start eating on your proteins as well. These structures subsequently fuse with the lysosomes, which destroy them. And if a defective autophagy is there, it is implicated in several diseases. Infections, autoimmune disorders, cancers, metabolic disorders, cardiovascular and pulmonary diseases are supposed to be linked to defective autophagy. And autophagy is found to be dysregulated in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease. This is another point in that review article. Autophagy upregulates starvation, means fasting and exercise. But they forget this aspect. This is one thing we need to take care of. And it helps in peri-implantation embryogenesis. That is the anorexia nervosa in the first trimester. Actually, it's a physiological process that decreased food intake actually helps the embryogenesis. And development and differentiation of various tissues are augmented with normal autophagy functioning in the body. So there are numerous points like that in that article. If you want, you can read that. Anyway, intermittent fasting helps preventing weight gain or helping weight loss. And it has got a scientific basis also. That's why it's all about autophagy. And there are more tips to avoid weight gain or to prevent overeating. Avoid all fast foods if there is an alternative. Fast foods are to be used only in case of emergencies, not for regular use. Avoid all the sugary foods. Avoid all the fried foods. Avoid all snacks. If at all you are snacking, use only fresh fruits because at least it is not harmful. Avoid all the foods with preservatives, artificial colors and flavors. And avoid sedentary lifestyle if possible. Or if you are onto a sedentary work, reduce carbohydrate intake when changing to a sedentary work or during lockdowns. And all these measures will prevent and control diabetes and other non-communicable diseases as well. These are food to be avoided. Never buy it and gift it. Never consume it if you have another alternative, even if it is so tasty and tempting. Even the health drinks are just fast foods only. No need to tell that biscuits, cake and chocolate and all these protein powders are belonging to that group only. They are not meant for regular use. Now I'll touch upon, I think I've shown this picture when I talked on diabetes. Who develops diabetes, hypertension, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, and even polycythemia, secondary polycythemia. This is story of a 24-year-old gentleman. He came when he developed 5 kilogram weight loss from his 73 to 68 kg, and he had fatigue, and the blood sugar was very high, SGPT was high, he was hypertensive. The only thing missing was polycythemia. Uric acid also will be high. And what happened to us, he was not good at school and he started a small business. He became very good at business, and the business flourished, and he became very rich. He had enough money. He took whatever he felt like eating. There was nothing to do. Physical activity was less, but stress was too much, and he ate too much of food. These three combination, overeating, physical inactivity, and stress, made him diabetic in another 9 years. And when he came, he was 68 kilogram, when actually he should be around 155 or 156 only. The father who accompanied him does not have diabetes. Their family did not have diabetes. He was 65 years, weighing only 55 kilograms. He's still an agricultural. He was still, it was 20 years ago. He was still an agricultural laborer. There was no family history of diabetes. In fact, on weight reduction, his diabetes was reversed. And this was my first patient where I could reverse diabetes. But I don't know what happened to him, because after stopping the private practice in the medical college, I lost him to follow up. And after that, I don't know what happened to him. Anyway, what if lockdown increases weight? We are going to actually increase the risk of getting problems with the COVID infection. This is what happens whenever you eat excess carbohydrates. There are some people who advocate frequent meals for diabetics. Each time you take carbohydrate, there is an insulin surge. There is hyperinsulinemia. And whenever insulin is secreted, it enhances lipogenesis. The excess carbohydrate that you take will be converted to fat and will be stored in the fat cells. And it also inhibits lipolysis. When you are starving, the first thing to be utilized is the glycogen stores in the liver. Once that is over, lipolysis will be stimulated in the absence of insulin, and you start burning your fat cells. But this does not happen, just the reverse happens. Every time you keep on eating carbohydrate, insulin goes on increasing, there is always hyperinsulinemia, lipogenesis is enhanced, lipolysis is inhibited. Finally, after secreting insulin, repeatedly excess secretion of insulin, the beta cells get exhausted, and after some years, they develop diabetes and develop, this is a vicious cycle we need to break. And that leads to all these diseases as a package, even PCOS, hyperuricemia, and kidney disease and liver disease are the result of diabetes and hypertension. Yes, CLD directly by the fat, and osteoarthritis. Even malignancies are more in people who are obese. So let us address wrong concepts about diet too. Diabetes is not due to eating sugar or rice. Food is not rice only. There are some people who change rice and go over to oats or wheat. Fruits are not harmful in diabetes. They have to be taken like any other person. Fruits are considered sweets. That is a problem, and the diabetics have been avoiding them. I had several arguments with the diabetologists some 20 years ago. I used to talk on prevention of diabetes, and the famous diabetologist used to argue that fruits should not be taken. And for most people, fruits means fruit juice, dry fruits, or boiled banana, or fried banana, or even halwa made of fruits. And there, I had seen patients avoiding lady's finger, saying that it contains fat. So wrong concepts are very common. Vegetables means they don't eat any non-vegetarian food. If you ask them, take vegetables 3 times a day, I will say, I take only vegetables. And then you go into the details of diet, you will find that there is not even a gram of vegetable. Avoiding vegetables due to pesticide scare is another huge issue we need to address. And there's no point comparing with others when they say, I eat only very little. They do not know how to individualize the calorie requirement. Now, for some people, balanced diet means eating 1 egg or once in a while 1 glass of milk or fish once in a while. That's not enough. They do not know that it has to be taken 3 times a day. Avoiding chicken for hemorrhoids is a very common mistake and idea, because what happens is they give equal importance to chicken and vegetables. When there is chicken, there is no vegetable. So what happens is they get constipation and they get hemorrhoids. So finally, these poor people give up chicken also, and protein deficiency also come in on top of that. And another biggest mistake I've seen is accepting normal values of BMI from USA, where they do not know that they are overweight. Because 90% are overweight, they consider it as normal. For them, obesity is above 30%, 30 meter square, kilogram per meter square. For us, it is, we need to take the lowest BMI only we should go for, rather than never compare with the US standards in BMI. And the wrong concepts get perpetuated in diet, because there are many people still believe that rice causes diabetes in India, and the USA people have started believing the wheat causes diabetes. And there are people who tell that jackfruit or millet cures diabetes. Nothing will cure diabetes. Only thing, you need to restrict the calorie. The carbohydrate is a villain. If you know how to restrict carbohydrate, you can cure diabetes. Oats will not reduce cholesterol. Pulses and potatoes produce gas is a common misconception. And protein, if you tell next day onwards, they go for protein powders under the influence of the consumerist forces. Now I told that I have done studies on these patients, diet modification in all these diseases, and there is no special diet. It's only a balanced diet, only normal diet, balanced diet in minimum quantities, required quantities, but stress on carbohydrate restriction without compromising quality. That's the secret behind the dietary change. So behavior changes are needed to avoid overeating. That one of the points you can tell is avoid eating any food for fun. Man is the only animal which eats for fun. No other animal does that. Avoid using food as a symbol of affection. Why do you want to show your affection with food alone? You can smile, you can hug. You don't have to. You give food as a symbol of affection to a person who comes with soon after his lunch or dinner or breakfast. And giving gift should not be any of these carbohydrate containing fast foods. Let us give only fresh fruits, or you can even give vegetables as gifts. Do not offer food unnecessarily to anyone, especially the carbohydrates, unless that person is hungry or starving. These are some of the behavioral changes we need to bring in to reduce overeating, diabetes, NASH, and all. But occasional deviations from the plan can be permitted, but you need to plan for it. So, for example, you need to take a sweet dish out of maybe like the porridge. You want to take, you are tempted to eat one chocolate. Count on that calorie. Next time you have to reduce that much of carbohydrate, or do compensation by increasing the exercise next day. So always take count of that excess calories. And this is done by weight recording every day. This is one I tell my patients to, rather than doing fasting lipid profile every day, buy a weighing machine, check your weight every day, and see whether you are gaining weight or losing weight. Never compare with others when you are comparing the food intake. We need to identify targets in weight management. Decide the normal weight or the desired weight. And that differs from person to person. That is why the BMI start dates set by USA will not work here. The lowest weight after completing skeletal maturity can be taken as normal if that person remains lean. But if the person is obese from childhood onwards, the lowest weight itself is very high. Then go for the lowest BMI possible for that age. That is rather than going for the highest BMI. So in overweight diabetes patients, weight recording at each visit is more important than even fasting blood sugar or HbA1c. Make it a habit to record the weight at each visit in people who are on a weight reducing diet to control diabetes. This is a very important investigation. I'll give some examples of good combinations and bad combinations. Good combination for breakfast, that typically is idli dosa, which contains rice and urad bean in the proportion of 3:1. It's a very good combination. And appam with dal, egg, fish or meat instead of going for potato. The puttu that we eat can be taken with fresh banana, green gram or Bengal gram. And puri with one dal or egg or curd, chapati or roti with a dal, egg or curd, any of them, one source of protein only, not more than that. Rice, sambar and vegetables in the form of avial and dal as a source of protein or curd as a source of protein. Not both unless if you are careful to avoid excess eating. Or chapati or roti with a dal, curd or egg can be taken for major meals. And this popular Kerala kanji payar is a very good combination of green gram combined with rice. Jackfruit, if you are eating, the protein has to come from meat, fish, egg or curd. Probably the jackfruit seeds also may be equally good. When you're taking tapioca, always eat meat, fish, egg or curd. With these things, never combine the pulses. That will not work. But remember to include fruits and vegetables in all these. This is only the basic combination, but these two should be there along with enough water. The caution on the wrong menu is very important. Puri bhaji, what does it contain? As such, puri itself is not a good thing because it is fried in oil, especially from the hotels. They use the same oil for repeated frying. And you eat only potato as a vegetable. There's no protein. You're eating too much of carbohydrate and some poison of the puree. Appam with the potato stew. Puttu with the boiled banana and some sugar. Tapioca with the green gram and raw banana with the green gram. These two are very popular during fasting days. Lunch, many people take rice with potato curry and rice with one of these yams like chana, jackfruit with pickle or tapioca with pickle and rice. Tapioca is often seen as a curry for the side dish for the rice. Junk foods and fried foods in any of these combinations is added in addition to that. Finally, people end up eating only the wrong things. Avoid milk as a source of protein, but use only curd as a source because milk has got some problems. If you take whole milk as a source of protein, the stomach may not, there is stomach upset because of several reasons. In addition, by the process of endocytosis, the whole milk protein may get absorbed and the antigenicity might produce antibodies against beta cells and it may damage the beta cells. So there is a theory like that. Anyway, it is not good for the stomach. So milk is never a balanced diet. And do not consider it as a panacea. And milk, do not take milk as for tiredness. And diabetics with uncontrolled diabetes, they should never take whole milk. But you can take milk, you can make a curd and use it. It's a very good source. When you take coffee or tea, also the milk structure is changed to tannate, so it will not produce that antigenicity. So don't, when I said milk, it is the whole milk only, not the changed structure with tea or coffee. No, naturally, when you advocate all these, some questions come up. Who should advise on diet to the patients? Now it has gone to the dietitian. In fact, doctor should be the person to advise on diet. Dietitian is to implement that prescription. Dietitian is not to prescribe the diet. Dietitian is to implement your prescription on diet. That is what you should know. But unfortunately, doctors have given up this job when food is a primary medicine. Why it is neglected? And unfortunately, what is happening is, with the limited knowledge of the dietitians, they are becoming very popular. They come as TV stars and talking on diet and what should be taken, and doctors are focusing on procedures alone. But nutrition does not stop with those four items. You need to remember water and fresh air too. 10 to 12 glasses of water you should take, at least 2 to 2.5 liters to ensure 1.5 liters of urine output. And 1 glass of water should be there as part of one meal. It may be taken before, during, or after meals, but the total quantity should be restricted to half the capacity, including that water. That is very important. And do not listen to the naturopath saying that the water intake can be regulated by thirst alone. But if you ignore thirst once, you can continue to ignore it. So you must know how much approximately you're taking. I see several patients who just take 4 or 5 glasses of water. Finally, they come with hyperuricemia and renal stones, renal urinary infection, and even deep vein thrombosis. And another very important nutrition that we forgot is the primary nutrition, that is air. Without fresh air, we cannot pull on even for more than 5 minutes. So ensure ventilation in the rooms wherever you stay, do work or sleep. And to get adequate oxygen, exercise also is important. And if you're obese, your chest wall expansion will be limited because of the decreased compliance, and you will not get enough oxygen. So reduce weight to get adequate oxygen, but that's not enough. These are the oxygen plants. Plants, trees, and forests around us should not be destroyed. They are the ones which provide oxygen and take up all the carbon dioxide we are exhaling. And besides all these basic issues in nutrition, let us give them tips on good lifestyle habits. And lifestyle means everything that they do over 24 hours, 365 days throughout their lives, and find out their exercise type, duration, and the intensity of it, modify all those things. What else we need to beat COVID-19? So let us give them tips on managing stress also. And in addition, develop a stress management plan for doctors too. These are separate topics by themselves. And let us learn to live with COVID-19 rather than running away from it or shutting down, escaping from the virus as such. It's not possible. Remember that asymptomatic COVID positives are not patients. This is a reality. If you take your urine, you may go E. coli, but you may not have urinary tract infection. You may take your swabs from your throat. You may get mucormycosis, you may get aspergillus, you may get candida, you may get streptococcus, staphylococcus, but you don't call them as having that infection. The same thing is true for COVID as well. The only fear was that they might transmit the infection to others. But if you can escape from the infection without much damage, why are you afraid? So let us take it as any other natural infection. The one only unnatural thing now is it is new to us. So several are likely to get exposed to it, and several of them may get symptomatic simultaneously. That is only unnatural thing. So let us prepare for that only. And the mortality, if at all, happens only in the people who are vulnerable. Who are they? Who are the vulnerable people? Those who do not eat a balanced diet and do not get these vitamins, vitamin D, folic acid, B12, B6, vitamin C, because the hyperhomocystinemia and the vitamin D deficiency, all these factors and even absence of vitamin C, all these will change your ability to deal with the virus. So most important vulnerable factor is missing balanced diet in the diet of the patients and the people who become symptomatic. That point is not taken care of. Nobody is asking about the dietary habits when they come with severe disease. Or those who do not take enough water, they may develop thrombosis. Or those who are already overweight and obese, even 2 kilograms from the expected normal matters in some patients. There are people who develop severe non-alcoholic fatty liver disease with just 2 kilogram weight gain. So we do not know who is walking around with that. When they come with problem, don't say he was perfectly normal, developed severe COVID. Those who do not do any exercise, those who consume fast food and junk foods and eating for entertainment, because these are people who put on weight and eat all the toxins and do not get the desired items. Those who smoke tobacco or take alcohol, those who are unable to manage their stress. Actually, we are more stressed than before now because of the fear psychosis. So those who already did not do any of these precautions which I have been mentioning for long years and have already developed disease will definitely get some problem. But even they need a modification of the diet and lifestyle to escape from the disease rather than trying to save all of them with oxygen plants and the pulse oximeters and all. So these are all impulsive behaviors. The happy hypoxia, you should know why it is happening. It is multifactorial and the treatment has to be individualized. There are blood clots, and the most important thing to know is why the blood clotting. It happens in people who are deficient in B12, folic acid, and B6. This produces hyperhomocystinemia. Liver diseases are rampant in them. You will not know unless you do liver enzymes, unless you know that they are overweight and having problems. Even fatty liver itself is enough. Protein CS deficiency, the natural anticoagulants are missing in them. And the infection can produce antiphospholipid antibodies in some, temporarily at least. Dehydration is very common because of anxiety or rapid breathing, decreased water intake. Many of them have high PCV also because overweight people have secondary polycythemia. So this combination is not detected because of fear psychosis. Patients are not properly evaluated to look for these predisposing factors. And these are reasons for the happy hypoxia in the background. Vitamin D deficiency and IRDS was linked from Australia first, but you should know that vitamin D deficiency is due to poor dietary habits or underlying liver disease, because the liver is involved in the 25 hydroxylation of vitamin D. So the cytokine storm or the interstitial lung disease is actually the response to the virus in some predisposed individuals only. The predispositions are the things which I have been telling. They already have a hyperinflammatory state because of overweight and underlying NASH and other things. So that behavior is a unique problem happening in selected individuals. So that is why, again, what we need to have done is to look for these predisposing factors and reverse them. The interstitial pneumonia by endothelial damage directly by the virus also is postulated, but that is extremely unlikely. I can tell that very confidently because I've been seeing some patients whom, whenever my patients get admitted to COVID ward, I go there directly and see them. The bystander may be just standing there even without a mask when we enter the ward of a COVID ward patient. And he does not, whoever it is, the bystander does not get any infection, even when they are standing with the seriously ill patient. So it's the viral load is not anyway, or the virus itself may not be responsible for the respiratory distress in these patients. And some people benefit by plasma because plasma will provide protein C and S. Or it may provide some missing vitamins. Steroid helps the cytokine storm. HCQS is an immunomodulator. Ivermectin helps because some of these patients may be having coexisting tropical eosinophilia. So all these drugs are useful in selected cases, not as a protocol. So let us remember that COVID-19 is a once in a lifetime experience. You cannot make plans by copying it from somewhere. You need to use wisdom, common sense, logic, and logistics, because all viral infections have some common behaviors. Familiarity with the behavior of infections is important in planning the programs. We get only fragmented observations. Vaccination benefits, we are after it. Natural infection also gives benefit, but no one is ready to take, because we think that we will be dying. In fact, we could have got exposed to the infection and recovered from it naturally also during this 1 year, at least those who are healthy enough. Less incidence in those who do exercise, we know. Vitamin D deficiency in COVID-19, but we must know that it is a marker of malnutrition. There's no point supplementing vitamin D alone. Steroid, we know, but we give it to some people, and there are studies on steroid. Then we say mucormycosis comes. It all because individualization does not help. Then the alternative systems come with steam inhalation, arsenicum album. That also helps because 90% will anyway recover. You can try anything and you can say that it is effective. But betal folic acid deficiency is still not recognized. And that is why the Gujarat is maximally suffering. They have betal deficiency in massive amounts, and the people are obese there. They are going to suffer because of that reason. Stress management helps, but we are generating more stress. So when a person comes as a patient, we have lost the golden chances to prevent it. We have missed the best or should have prevented it. Remember the objective of doctors while treating a patient. These are the three objectives. Cure sometimes only, you cannot cure always. Comfort often, you can control the hypertension, you can control the sugar, but when you reverse only, you are curing. But console always. You may not be able to treat and cure or everyone, but work for preventing that disease. But then the thought naturally comes, will doctors become jobless? That's a rubbish idea. You will not become jobless. You will become jobless when you concentrate on becoming a ventilator expert or a transplant expert. You will become jobless. You will not become jobless if you really want to become a doctor, concentrating on diet and lifestyle management, promoting health and wellness. And that is why family doctors will never become jobless for that reason. This is what happens now. It's like 6 blind men palpating an elephant. They miss the elephant. That is malnutrition, poor lifestyle. The numerous cures, remedies, and suggestions do not see the real problem. None of them sees. We need a 360-degree vision on individuals as well as public health. Both are needed to make plans. And it is possible only for the GPs and family doctors. And that too if they have social commitment. Otherwise, actually, we do not have any of these group of doctors now in large numbers. And that is why all the problems that we see. In the name of science, we fail to see the macro issues, and they're linked to microscopic issues like vitamin D deficiency. That is the point here. And to reassure you, I will also disclose my encounter with the Nipah when it broke out in Kerala, in Kozhikode. I was a silent spectator because I was a retired person, but interacted with the doctor who cared for the first patient and found that that doctor had very close contact with the patient without even a mask, and that person did not get Nipah. And the whole Kozhikode was completely locked down. And because one of the doctors in that particular CHC challenged me, I went there without wearing a mask, and I could allay the fear psychosis and remove all their masks. And that is how they could come out of that fear psychosis. I didn't tell the story to any. And in fact, I even visited the house of the first patient to reassure them without wearing a mask during that Nipah lockdown in Kozhikode. And I collected details on patients who died and found that there were other contributory reasons which they did not disclose or find out. It is not just Nipah alone, they had several other problems as well.
Yeah.
So therefore, my advice on COVID-19 is do not panic. Do not spread scare, and it is a mass hysteria now. You cannot stop a wind or cyclone or flood. You may have to find some ways to escape from it. You can certainly protect yourself, prevent damage to you. Patients, doctors, relatives, and friends who followed my advice during the pandemic did not have any problem that I'm sharing you now, because during last 1 year, I had several of my patients were managed at home and their relatives. Let us work for preventing that in future also. So we need to do it scientifically. Take universal precautions, use common sense. Avoid face shield and gloves and PPE kits everywhere. It's not needed actually. These three are unnecessary. Use only mask and hand hygiene, maybe and the distancing, and allow the society to move on with precautions rather than locking down. Nothing can stop the virus, no matter what we do. Work for herd immunity. What is herd immunity? It's not by vaccination alone. Natural infection gives herd immunity. Vaccination gives herd immunity. Innate immunity by diet and lifestyle is the best herd immunity we can dream of. Because even for the vaccination to work, we need good cell-mediated immunity and macrophage functioning with the antigen presentation. That will work only with good diet and lifestyle. So let us protect the innate immunity as the best herd immunity. Do not put hope only on vaccination. And natural infection gives better herd immunity because the virus is complete. Here you are using only one spike protein. So the natural infection given herd immunity is better than vaccination. So let us think intelligently and vaccinate only the high risk group. That is my advice. But now I think it is not going to work because people pin hope only on the vaccine now. So this is one thing which I want to share with you. The virologist who has been advising our governments to push vaccine justifies the vaccination by saying that natural infections induces both virus neutralizing antibody and T cell mediated immunity. Natural infection is indeed protective in the vast majority, and the vast majority do not have any problems, 90 to 95%. Let us increase the 95 to 99% by modifying the diet and lifestyle of people. Then we can actually reduce the use of oxygen and ventilators. This is again to reassure you that I was in Italy, Milan. I was in Rome actually. I had to travel through the Milan, which was the worst hit area during COVID-19 when it came to Italy. You can see the people around me sitting with mask, and I did not wear a mask because I was not afraid at that time. Even now I am not afraid because I think I can protect myself by other precautions. But mask anyway helps. I don't say that you should not use mask. Mask should be worn, but mask alone is not enough. Anyway, in spite of not wearing mask and traveling through that area, I did not get any disease till today. That is what I'm trying to reassure you. So and I have been working till today. I never stopped working, and I'm seeing COVID positives, including with no PPE kit, but I use a mask. Mask alone I am using, and personal hygiene I am using, distancing also naturally, and these three are enough to tackle the problem at the moment. And these are some of the ignorances that get perpetuated. I'm just trying to tell that we are ignorant and we are just waiting for Western guidelines. Vitamin D deficiency became accepted only because of my studies, but they failed to see that it is due to malnutrition. B12 still not understood properly. In fact, we are drowning in B12 deficiency. And the idiopathic or stress polycythemia, which I presented last week, is still known as Gase-Box syndrome for the last 110 years. I could crack the cause by intense observation only as a lifestyle disorder. I'm just jokingly also I was telling last time that it can be known after if it can be known after Gase-Box for 1 century, why not it be known after me now? So these are some of the things we need to think. Original observations made in India has no value. We are waiting for, even for the vitamin D, still we are waiting for directions from Western countries. There are too many named syndromes. They are not diseases. They are just observations only. So how should we move forward? I'll just conclude with a few slides on the larger social issues. Let us know our priorities in healthcare and the social issues in the context of COVID-19. This is just to complete it. Let us provide all these social determinants for health to everyone. Do we have any of these? Do we have safe drinking water? Is our tap water safe for drinking? No balanced diet at all. Decent shelter, sanitation facilities, clean and safe environment, waste management. In fact, countries like Sweden prominently say do not waste your waste culture. Facilities for exercise, adequate public places. We need to promote agriculture for the primary medicine. We need to promote primary education to bring out good citizens who know the human values, who will work for others. And we need large number of primary care doctors to tell about healthcare measures, prevention of disease and promotion of health and early diagnosis. And people should be empowered for good lifestyle habits. I'll just rush through, but all these lifestyle habits, if you look at, they need family doctors for awareness creation. And some of these like exercise needs provision for footpaths, cycle paths, parks and playgrounds. They need PWD and the government intervention. So it is in fact agriculture, family doctors and socially minded politicians and bureaucrats can provide all these facilities for ensuring people to resort to good lifestyle habits, including balanced diet and waste management including. And that is what we need to plan for. At least let us bring safe drinking water through public distribution system rather than depending on this packaged water. All these good lifestyle habits, including posture, hygiene, all need family doctors to educate the public. So that is why the country like India, USA and Brazil are suffering. These are three countries which do not have a good health system. But unfortunately, our authorities, including the doctors who address the government, say USA it is like that, USA it is like this. USA is the worst model to talk on family medicine and health systems. This is our number one enemy, malnutrition. Remember that. This is our second problem. Remember that. We are not going to solve it by this Divya Jal and all. Third is waste mismanagement and toilets, sanitation facilities. There are some places who do not have 50% people do not have toilets in some places. No shelter. People anywhere in the country living like this is our problem as well, all due to improper distribution of resources. We should not see a child sleeping like this anywhere in the country if you have something called healthcare. Technology alone is not enough. And in the middle of all these inadequacies, we allow our celebrities to promote consumerism. That they have to be controlled. They should never be allowed to endorse things which are not useful to us. And the unchecked consumerism has brought us back to this shape with obesity in addition. And the present picture is a combination of these two. Originally, we were like this. Now, everything is at fingertip, but we have a combination of these two. And finally, you have a deadly combination of malnutrition and consumerism that gives all these diseases as a package. India has the highest disease burden in the world. You cannot name any disease where we are even number 2. Remember that. So lack of social health, lack of science in healthcare leads to higher disease burden. Diseases occur among the marginalized sections. If you get any disease in large numbers in a society, it means some kind of marginalization. That's what we need to change. But instead of that, there is an overuse of technology in the name of science. Because technology is not science. It's just a technique for improvising an art or a medical practice. Science is truly studying nature, events and things and observe, experiment, learn how the world works and apply logical thinking, logical behavior and using common sense. This is alone is science. I'll just illustrate that by saying a child falls into a tube well. You could have prevented by science by just spending 500 rupees. And we wait for the next victim to use technology. Preventing war alone is science. Manufacturing using weapons is just using technology only. Similarly, vaccine is not science. When to use, when not to use is science. Vaccine is only a technology. We have been actually sitting on a volcano which are already erupted. This is what has happened to India, USA and Brazil. So let us take this decision. Balanced diet and good lifestyle is the only way to improve genuine innate herd immunity to beat all infections, including COVID-19. It's a fundamental right because we are what we eat. What we eat is not only through the mouth, in addition, it is what we listen, what we see, what we experience, everything is there. And if you are not going to do any of these or all of these, let us be prepared for mass extinction in another 100 years. This is going to happen. Already 40 to 50% of some or other illness. In another 40 years, it will be 80%. In another, and by 100 years after us, almost all of us will be extinct. That's the point we are going to. So the fear psychosis and mass hysteria is let out, and it is killing more people than the virus. That is my feeling. And vaccine is, at the moment, vaccine is the only solution, because you cannot escape, because you need to get this monster into this. That is possible only by mass vaccination. That is a stage which you are created now by the mass hysteria. And because just to avoid people saying that I am an anti-vaxxer, I took the vaccine. But I don't think vaccine is the only solution. But vaccine helps. I'm not against vaccine anyway. Please do not think like that. And this is the point which I would share with you at the moment. It is easier to fool the people than to make them believe that they have been fooled. It was been told by Mark Twain. It is very relevant in this context. Thank you for the patient listening. I can answer your queries, questions, and concerns on specific aspects of that if you have any. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your wonderful talk. If anyone have any queries, you can ask directly.
Hi, sir.
Hello.
Sir, my doubt is with regard to the balanced diet. What about the fat component? How do we get the healthy fat component?
In fact, that's what, in fact, I touched upon that. You don't have to deliberately add fat for fat, because anything that you eat contains some amount of fat. Anything. That is why you get corn flour oil and even rice bran oil. Everything that we eat has some amount of fat. So you don't have to add extra fat to get fat. But you can add fat, but count on the calories. When you add fat, it can increase the taste component. Second, as I said before, if you are eating raw, the fatty component, that is coconut oil or olive oil or ghee, any of them, if it can mix very well, it will also destroy some of the germs that may be contaminating. So that is why it is good. So add lemon juice also, so that if you are eating raw, you can make it a safe vegetable diet. But you don't have to add extra fat deliberately every time you eat. But there is no harm in adding. Anyway, it is needed, but you will get it unknowingly. I hope it is clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other question? There was some
now I can read questions from the chat box.
Please.
So what is the difference of the available sugars, that is from sugar from milk, fruits, starch, that is between sucrose, fructose, and glucose?
Glucose does not need digestion. It will be absorbed quickly and it will be utilized quickly, but when it is absorbed rapidly, insulin surge will be rapid. After some time, there is insulin but no sugar. And that insulin is going to, excess insulin is going to suppress lipolysis. So do not eat simple sugars. But fruits we are taking for the vegetable, the nutritional components. Though there is some disaccharides, that will be digested and utilized much slower as compared to simple sugars, like the sugar that we take. And it will give so many other additional benefits. That sugar we can take, but not in excess.
So next question, is there anything called Viruddhaharam?
Yes. In fact, the one point we need to know is that Paranjolil Padirilla, that means the old sayings have some meaning, but they do not know the scientific basis behind it. So they go on perpetuating that statement. Actually, that is why it appears ridiculous to us. So, for example, curd and meat are considered Viruddhaharam. But the point is, you don't have to eat curd when you eat meat. That's the only point. But if you are very particular, careful, you can eat, say, 10 gram of curd and 10 gram of meat to make it 20 gram for a meal. Nothing will happen. The point why it is mentioned is forgotten by the person who first made that point. Later on, that wrong message only gets perpetuated. That is what happens. For example, mother's milk only is considered balanced diet, but it has got transferred to cow's milk. Mother's milk is a balanced diet for the first 3 months for the baby. It is not cow's milk. Cow's milk is balanced diet for the calf, not for the baby.
So next question, when we are detailing about the balanced diet, patient used to tell about the affordability issues. How can we deal with such issues?
That is a big social issue. The affordability can be addressed only by social empowerment. If you can afford ventilator, oxygen plants, transplant expenses, dialysis charges, why can't we? We are spending, it's like applying the manure on the top of the coconut tree. We are wasting all the money there. So why not spend, and don't think India is poor. India is a very rich country. It is distribution of wealth, the corruption, stopping corruption, distribution of wealth, we will get enough resources. Once you start producing social security and human development, corruption itself will stop. That's why I stress on always on the primary education and primary care doctors. And then we will have enough resources for providing all these. It is a social change we need to aim at. It is not, there is no quick fix solution for it. It's a social change. We need to work for it. And doctors are teachers, and doctors to tell the patients and politicians that this is what we need. Otherwise, they will go on buying ventilators and dialysis machines.
Next question, is Asian classification of BMI is acceptable in our setting?
No classification is applicable to individuals, but it gives some direction that you should not go by the Western guideline because it is too high. You should not take 25 as the overweight. At least they have come down to 23. But I had seen, I have several patients who have just a BMI of 18.5 developing non-alcoholic steatohepatitis or diabetes, just because they put on 2 kilograms from their previous normal with a BMI of 18. BMI of 18 becoming 18.5 is enough in some individuals to produce these manifestations. So you should not go by the guidelines that is given. Algorithms, these guidelines are for rough ideas only, and we need to know how to individualize it. That is how the success of our practice comes.
What are the foods containing vitamin B12?
B12 is present in meat only. Now, even fish is said to contain, but I have seen, I have been studying B12 for quite closely for the last 2 decades, and I found that patients who do not eat always have vitamin B12 deficiency, meat regularly. But if they are very careful to eat green leafy vegetables regularly, they will get B12. So that B12 regularly, the green leafy vegetables taken regularly every day can ensure adequate B12. But there is a problem here. Because of fear of pesticide, people are washing it meticulously. They are washing it with vinegar, washing it with even bleaching it. There are solutions available in the market to wash all these. And finally, they miss the bacteria which give the B12. It is a bacteria on these vegetables which give you B12. And there's no point washing vegetables too much if it is otherwise clean.
Sir, can I ask? Sir, I
please.
am Dr. Jyoti. Sir,
Please.
what is the defect? What are the side effects in using cow's milk as a human food, sir? What will be the?
That's what I was trying to tell you. If you watch children who are given cow's milk meticulously by the mothers, you find that they do not absorb their iron, and they do not eat for other food also, because the stomach filling of stomach comes very easily. And to get adequate protein, they have to drink some liters of milk, because only 3.5 gram per 100 ml. So to make up for the total requirement, they need to take excess milk, and it is not stomach friendly. Stomach upset comes. Iron is not absorbed. So children do not eat other things if you give them milk regularly. That is one aspect in pediatrics. And I was telling about the common problem in adults also, because milk protein it has got a structure called quaternary structure. All proteins have binary structure, tertiary structure, quaternary structure. And once the quaternary structure is gone, its antigenicity will go. So if you give whole milk, the quaternary structure as such remains and it is antigenic. By the process of endocytosis, it can get absorbed into the blood, at least in small portions. And that antigenicity can trigger antibody production. And these antibodies have molecular mimicry to beta cells of pancreas, and it can damage the pancreas. This is a theory that has been put forward. And I have personally observed that the diabetics who take milk have uncontrolled diabetes. When you stop that milk, the diabetic control becomes better. So never give whole milk to anyone. But you can coffee, tea is all right. Please. Coffee and tea are all right because it will get converted to tannates. The structure changes. Hope it is clear.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Sir,
Hello.
this is Devi, sir.
Please.
About honey, sir. Honey, what is the sugar in honey?
Anyhow, there is no harm in using honey. Is a natural sugar. That's all. When you want sweetness, go for natural sugars. That is from fruits, honey, jaggery also, not the bleached sugar. But count down the calorie content. That is all.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Another question, sir. Regarding reverse osmosis, sir, for water purification.
Okay.
There are some aquaguards available where they take away the copper.
In fact, that it appears to have some scientific point. When you do reverse osmosis, water alone gets into the other compartment because water naturally contains several elements. There are sodium, potassium, calcium, several things are there unknowingly. Some of them may be harmful even, but anyway, there are elements which are useful to the body. All these are missing when you do reverse osmosis. Pure water comes into the other side. But when you take pure water alone, these naturally available micronutrients are missing. That is the only problem. Otherwise, but if you take plenty of vegetables and fruits, even that will be looked after.
Okay, sir. Because nowadays there is a RO machine that is taking away the.
It is true, but don't worry too much about it. But it's not needed for us. It is needed only in some places where heavy metals are contaminating the drinking water provided to them. For us, it is actually not needed.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
I see Dr. Krishnadas.
Yeah, sir. Good evening, sir. Very nice talk because I have been following every Sunday. So thank you, sir, for the classes. And then regarding curd, the curd and the comparison, the milk, the same iron problem is there, absorption problem compared to the milk and curd.
No, because curd means the quaternary structure gets altered. It is denatured.
Okay.
So the antigenicity is gone. All the good things in milk is there in curd. In addition, you have another advantage, the lactobacillus.
Okay. I just wanted to know whether the problem of iron absorption.
No, iron absorption problem will not be there because it is a quaternary structure protein that binds iron.
Okay.
With the curd, it will not happen.
Okay, and the curd is a source of protein plus fat also is there, no?
That is there. That will be there in milk also. That fat component you have to add to the calorie content.
Okay. So thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you. Any other question? The keto diet.
Sir, can I continue?
Please.
So, in critically ill patients admitted in hospitals usually need high protein diet, that is 1.5 gram per kg per day or even more. Most of these patients are on nasogastric feeding also. But even after trying the maximum, this protein intake target cannot be attained with a kitchen blended diet. I wish to know your advice on the strategies to increase the protein intake in these patients, relying on commercially available protein containing powders.
Okay, that's a very good question, very practical problem and difficult to manage also. If you have dedicated dietitian, you can easily manage it. If you have dedicated dietitian and a kitchen which will prepare diet according to our plan, it is very easy. So I tell them if there is a dietitian and a canteen or a kitchen which is prepared to provide it, what you can advise is kanji and pyre, the rice and together if it is blended properly, can be given through the rice tube. But that may not be enough. Then you can smash an egg, half-boiled egg, and given through it. Curd also can be mixer using mixer grinder. You can make it thinner and can be given through the rice tube. These are ways by which you can make natural proteins. Otherwise, as a feed, you can give potato and mashed egg together. Mashed potato and half-boiled egg mashed together with some coconut milk and vegetable soup and fruit juices, make a complete meal. So you can actually naturally make it, provided you have good dietitian and the doctor know how to prescribe a diet. That is one. Otherwise, in the as a last resort, you go for some protein powders to give the protein requirement. Then the ICU patient needs protein, calories, vegetables, and nutrients. So you need to modify it depending on the situation. But whenever it is possible, I recommend natural proteins only, even in the ICU. Hope it is clear.
So, next question. I recently heard about a new diet called alkaline diet in order to maintain a pH of 7.4, arguing that the same will prevent all diseases. So what is your opinion regarding that?
This is again, I was trying to convey by saying that there's no point laughing at them. They have a point. We need to understand what does it actually scientifically means. See, when you take large amount of vegetables, I had seen that video saying that this is an alkaline diet and it will protect from. In fact, the vegetable salad is what he was giving, and there was some additional herbs also to it, like lime and ginger also was added to it with some oil, and that's exactly what I was telling with the excess vegetables in a meal. When you take excess vegetables, that will ensure that you will not take enough carbohydrate and protein, too much of protein and carbohydrate. Because when you increase the carbohydrate or protein content, the protein digestion will give rise to acidic pH. They have a point also. So the protein content will naturally get restricted, and the body pH regulation is easier for the body, that's all. But whether you eat too much or nothing will happen if the kidneys are functioning normally. It knows how to maintain the pH to alkaline level. You don't have to eat an alkaline diet or to change the pH of the water to get an alkaline to make the body alkaline. You need to eat a balanced diet only, and the kidneys will function normally, and the alkalinity of the blood will be maintained naturally. So that is what scientifically we should know. But the poor people go on advocating something which is useful to people when we are not telling anything. So that way the people are benefited. We are not telling anything to the public, and that is why I was very keen on taking this class to the doctors, because I have been talking to some educated people, and they have been following it. Then the doctors should know why that is relevant. Okay, there's no point laughing at the people who said alkaline diet. I find a point in that. There is a point. Hope it is clear.
Okay, sir. So, next question. Is there any need of diet modification in patients on chemotherapy for malignancy?
Definitely. Anyone, the one thing you must know is that anyone, whether it is renal disease, liver disease, or chemotherapy, the patient needs a balanced diet to recover from the disease. We need to know how to modify the diet in that particular context. That's a separate problem by itself. While the patient is on chemotherapy, they are immunosuppressed, sometimes neutropenic. So the food that you give should not be raw. It should be boiled only, half boiled, because that will destroy all these germs. And you can add oil and lemon so that it will become decontaminated. And then you give fruits also. Fruits should not be fruits with the intact skin only should be used. And after removing the skin, without touching the inside of it, you can use even fresh fruits. So be careful in using fruits like these grapes and all, because you may be using it as such. Those which can be clean and neat only should be given. Otherwise, they also need a balanced diet. Depending on their peculiar situation, we need to modify the diet in them.
So what is the role of multivitamins?
Multivitamin, because as I said before, even I will not get a balanced diet 3 times a day. I cannot sit in my home alone to eat a balanced diet 3 times. So ultimately, we do not have a system where we naturally get a balanced diet regularly 3 times a day. Finally, we are forced to take multivitamin supplements to make up for the deficit once in a while or regularly, depending on the situation where you are living. So there is a role for multivitamin tablets. You don't have to hesitate, but do not give too much.
So nowadays, for rapid weight reduction, some are following low carb diet by restricting carbohydrates and even fruits. Rapid weight reduction can create any health issue.
Probably you are referring to that keto diet. Keto
Keto
diet is an unscientific diet. Actually, one should know that ketosis is a natural process happening in the body whenever you restrict carbohydrate. You don't have to get ketones. The person who talks about keto diet says give excess of meat and excess of fat, high fat diet, and no carbohydrate. It will reduce the weight because there won't be any insulin secretion. Because there is no insulin surge, it will help weight reduction. But that is not what we want. The patient wants all the components of a balanced diet. So ketosis is a natural process whenever carbohydrate is restricted. So there is no point calling it as keto diet, first of all. And as such, it is unscientific because it does not contain other components. And to achieve weight reduction, the ideal way to do that is you can exclude all the carbohydrates and survive only on vegetables. The entire bulk coming from vegetables and a complete protein and fruits, so that not even excess fat. Minimal fat you can add to increase the taste of it. So eat only a vegetable diet with the complete protein, not an incomplete protein like pulses. Vegetarians can take curd or mushroom if they are on a weight reducing diet, and then they can achieve weight loss. This is what I have been doing for all these patients with NASH and type 2 diabetes who are overweight. I could reverse several of them. Even polycythemia, secondary polycythemia can be reversed, but you have to be careful. You need to stop all the hypoglycemic agents. In diabetics, if you're applying weight reduction, stop insulin, stop sulfonylureas, then only you attempt to do that. So patient should not be having any acute emergencies. Then you stop all these and give only metformin, and then go stop all the carbohydrates. You can make them survive only on vegetables, fruits, and a complete protein in moderation, as I shown. And with that, you can achieve weight reduction and euglycemia if the pancreas is fit enough to produce some insulin.
So next question, what is your opinion on green tea?
What my opinion on green tea? Okay, green tea. This is one of the things that there are people who say oats for cholesterol, 30 ml alcohol for your heart. It is something like that only. There are no shortcuts for anything. Green tea probably is good. Let us presume that it is good. But why should we go for that? There are several other good things here. We can be healthy with whatever is available here. Suppose green tea is available everywhere, and if it is beneficial, you can use it. But I presume that it is useful, because in China, everyone is taking green tea only as the only drink. They actually walk around with hot water with green tea in it, and they drink only that throughout their life. And definitely it must be good. It must be good. There is no harm in using it. Instead of tea, if you are going for green tea, it will be definitely good.
So next question, patients on warfarin, can they take green leafy vegetables?
That's a good question, because the diet should not change whether they are on treatment or dialysis. The diet should contain whatever is essential for the patient. So if the patient is on warfarin, anyway it is given, that is why we are timing it at 6 p.m. The vegetable portion containing green leafy vegetables should not be taken along with it. That's all. Morning and lunch they can definitely take, and night also should not contain too much of vegetables. So take it at least 3-4 hours before the next or previous meal. That gap will help avoiding that problem.
So next question, diet modification for people with hyperuricemia.
Hyperuricemia is a result of excess protein that you consume primarily through carbohydrate and through the protein-rich food. and also because of the decreased water intake. So you can control hyperuricemia by reducing the carbohydrate to the minimum and taking protein to the minimum. Protein should not be taken in excess or alone, and carbohydrate also should be reduced because the source of carbohydrate in our diet is primarily the cereals which contain protein. And never use pulses as a food item. I've seen several persons, including vegetarians, even yesterday, a vegetarian who came with hyperuricemia because he is using too much of pulses. Too much of pulses means there will be hyperuricemia. So pulses should not be taken in excess. It should be taken only with the cereals and in moderation, not more than what they need. So moderation of the protein containing diet, including cereals and pulses or other non-vegetarian items, that is the first step. Second is to increase water intake. These two together will look after hyperuricemia in long run, but temporarily you may need medications.
Next question, what is the lowest possible BMI target for us?
You can go up to 18. Because I have several patients who are normal with 18 BMI. You have to individualize it. You cannot say that is normal for everyone. But there are at least 5 of my patients who are normal with a BMI of 18. When their BMI goes to 19, they get non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, diabetes, and hypertension. So that is normal for them. So individualize the patient before you decide on the target.
Next, what is the role of items like turmeric, curcumin, mustard, etc. in preparing food?
You see, these things, there is no point laughing at the people who come out with benefit for them. Anyway, we have been using it. When they say it is beneficial, let us continue using it. That is only advice I will give to that suggestion. Curcumin must be useful. That is why the Americans have started marketing curcumin as treatment for some diseases even. So let us continue using the whole turmeric rather than going for the one component curcumin alone.
So next, what about refrigerated food?
Refrigeration is not, some people think that if you keep the food in the refrigerator, it becomes safe. That is an attitude of some people, but one should know how to use a refrigerator. If in case you do not, you can afford to prepare each meal every time you eat, you don't need a refrigerator at all. Especially if you have vegetables and fruits produced in your garden, you don't need a refrigerator at all. That is not possible for a modern life. So we need a refrigerator, but do not overuse it. If at all, you may prepare excess for one day only, not for 2-3 days. That is one thing. And if you have to keep some extra, separate it out and let it go to the fridge immediately, rather than keeping it on the table and going on eating, and the remaining leftover portion goes to the refrigerator. That's a wrong attitude.
Next, should we stress on regular exercise and balanced diet rather than weight reductions?
Weight reduction will be naturally achieved by regular exercise and balanced diet. If you are overweight, you have to achieve weight reduction. So that is a must. You cannot continue with that weight and live healthy. If you are already overweight and developed NASH or diabetes or hypertension or polycythemia, you need to reduce the weight. That person cannot say that I will remain healthy with exercise and balanced diet. Balanced diet will not make you healthy unless you reduce the weight in an overweight person. So first you must know that you are overweight and you need to reduce that weight. And balanced diet is a must. But the quantity of carbohydrate has to be modified to achieve weight loss or to prevent weight gain if your weight is normal otherwise.
Okay. Next question, is there any increased chance of developing gastritis or dyspeptic symptoms in persons practicing intermittent fasting? If so, how to prevent it?
Intermittent fasting means fasting 12 hours only. If the food that you eat when you break fast is properly taken, nothing will happen. And anyway, water has to be taken. This is a very good question because in Ramzan season, I find patients who come with problems like deep vein thrombosis, hyperuricemia, urinary tract infection. They don't know, even stroke and myocardial infarction gets prescribed in some individuals when they forget to take adequate water at night. Fasting is only for the carbohydrate restriction and a moderate diet and to reduce the weight, or actually refurbishing the body, or fitness of the body has to be increased during fasting rather than putting on weight. So during fasting, nothing will happen if you eat that proper food and adequate water intake. Nothing will happen. The food has to be appropriate, and vegetables should be in large amounts. Actually, they should break the fast with fruits, vegetables, and water, not the dry fruits, the dry dates. Dry dates are not fruits even. So tell them to break fast with fresh fruits, vegetables, and water, and eat carbohydrate in very little amount, and take the minimum amount of protein at night when they break the fast. In the morning also, they should, if they are overweight, they should stick to that kind of a diet. But the water intake has to be ensured, 2 liters, 2.5 liters, especially if the fasting happens during summer, like April, May.
So next question, dietary advice for patients with hypothyroidism.
Actually, that such messages that certain diet will affect thyroid may be true, may not be true, but do not eat that particular item regularly. That's the only thing you need to take care of. So, for example, thyroid patients should avoid the cabbage and broccoli and all. That does not mean that you should not touch it ever. Do not eat it in large amounts and regularly, if at all. I don't think natural sources will provide that much problems. And maybe once in a while you can, but do not make it a habit when there is like that. We have no direct observation on such things.
So next one, can measure of waist hip ratio to diagnose general obesity can be routinely used in clinical practice here rather than relying on BMI, as it is not sensitive enough in our population?
Actually, there is no need of wasting time looking for waist hip ratio and all. If you know the normal weight and the physical appearance will tell whether the waist hip ratio is abnormal. You don't have to even measure it. One look at the abdomen will tell whether it is normal or not. Measuring is not the important thing. Look at the abdomen and waist, whether the type of fat accumulation, and look at the BMI. That is more than enough. It is not necessary to measure it regularly unless you are into a study process. For a research purpose, it may be needed.
So there is no further questions in chat box.
If there are any direct questions, also we can take. Otherwise, we will conclude. Any direct questions?
I think no direct questions.
Okay.
Sir, actually, sir, I'm Dr. Begum. I wanted to ask one question, sir.
Please.
Actually, this is not related to this topic, but for this migraine, sir, most of the time in books and all, they have given that tea and coffee will be a precipitant. The same time, for a migraine, we are using tablets with caffeine and this theophylline now, sir.
That's a very good question, because migraine in every patient, migraine only means your vascular system is hypersensitive to certain stimuli. That certain stimuli vary from person to person. If you can identify that stimulus which is specific for you, you can avoid migraine. Most people have migraine due to blocked nostrils or perfumes or room fresheners. Some people get it due to Ajinomoto or margarine, the cheese, mayonnaise. So you identify what precipitates it. Similarly, eye strain can also precipitate. Sleeplessness can precipitate. Identify the factors which precipitate migraine and prevent that. That is the best preventive measure for migraine. There are numerous precipitating factors in a given individual also. It's not just one thing alone. Identify all of them, including anemia, and that will control the migraine. And food items, when you come to food items, blanket statement you can give is, allergic rhinitis is an important cause for precipitating migraine in majority of the people with migraine, intractable migraine. So tell them to avoid all the fast foods, junk foods, artificial colors and flavors, and perfumes also. And that will avoid. And if you have cervical spondylosis, you have to adjust your posture. And if you have nasal block, you may use some antihistamines as a prophylactic agent. These measures are enough. But avoid mayonnaise, cheese, and Ajinomoto. But tea and coffee they will not precipitate migraine. In some individuals, maybe individual cases it may be. In that case only it need to be avoided.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Hope it is exhausted. So let us wind up. Thank you. Thank you. sir.
Let's wind up the session. Now I would like to invite Dr. Donna CL, Assistant Insurance Medical Officer, ESI Hospital, Thrissur. She is our alumni, for delivering vote of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Donna.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Department of Family Medicine, Kozhikode, I would like to thank the most respected speaker, Dr. P.K. Shashidharan sir, for his authentic talk based on his rich experience, experiments, and keen observations. Thank you so much, sir. We will cultivate your advice in our life and pass it on to our family members, friends, and definitely our patients and public. Next, I thank the esteemed audience, including our respected teachers, colleagues, and friends, for your patient listening and active participation from different parts of India and outside. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you.